Well, the NSA snooping scandal sparking new concerns over online privacy and who's tracking you in cyberspace. Google is trying to rebuild its reputation following reports that it helped the government spy on millions of Americans. But the internet giant has a history of similar accusations. Investigations have been questioning Google's data mining practices for years. John Lucich is an internet security expert and the president of eForensic. John, thanks so much for being here. Help us understand this. Was Google an unwitting partner to the NSA, or were they readily handing over our information?
Well, two things. Number one, I don't know how you describe partner. I mean, if they received a court order that was issued by the FISA court to provide this type of information, then they have to comply. If the FBI comes to an individual and says, we need your help, you don't think that person's going to help the United States federal government to track down terrorism?
But having said all of that, just last week, the head of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and the head of Google, Larry Page, said they'd never heard of the PRISM program before. They hadn't heard of it.
Well, it's very possible that they received an order to give this information but did not understand where it was going. But giving that information to the federal government, you have to understand it may not have been associated with the prison, but certainly you knew they were going to go through this information. Remember, nobody pays for Google. So how is Google making money? They've been data mining for, and I know they don't call it that, but they've been collecting information on everybody, your surfing habits, and reselling that information to marketers. But there's a sinister side of that that can be used, that information can be used against individuals. I've been warning people since MySpace. You're going to run for office one day. What you're saying right now at the age of 12, 13, and 14 is going to come back when you're going to run for Congress. Stop putting the stupid stuff online.
But the sinister side that you're talking about is what? Who's going after us for the content that is all floating around out there?
Well, let's not forget what's going on with the IRS. Could you imagine if this type of information, what you were doing when you were younger, who your associations were, they would know right away who you're. If the IRS was involved in that targeting, I know it seems like that way, but I always, as a former state law enforcement officer, want to see the end of the investigation when all the facts come in. So, pending that, if they were involved in that, could you imagine what the federal government could do with this much information on associations and who people are communicating with?
But it seems so overwhelming, John. Now we all live out here in the real world. We can't just sort of lock ourselves away and be hermits. So what's the answer if we don't like all of our personal business being exposed?
I think this is a great opportunity for investors to step in and create a niche market for free searching, non-tracking. Instead of being multi-billionaires, maybe we're multi-millionaires. We'll have a successful company in light of what's going on with all these major search engines, okay? And remember, the only reason the federal government's coming to them is because they've amassed all this information. If you get a search engine out there that does not track you, that does not save your information, and just makes their money from advertising with those pop-ups and all these other links that they provide, I think millions at a time would jump to a search engine like that and say goodbye to Google. I know how to get Google to stop what they're doing. Don't use Google. We agree to use Google. We're the ones going to Google, and then we complain about what they're doing. Remember, they're providing you what appears to be a free service. Nothing is free in life.
So there is no non-tracking search engine right now in existence.
Right now, because they take information for marketing purposes and other purposes, that becomes a treasure trove of information of what they're looking at by the federal government. Now, the federal government cannot come to a company who's not tracking that information and storing that information and say, start doing it. They can't do that, okay? Unless, I guess, they get a court order, but I don't know any judge that's going to allow them to do that. Go create a search engine that doesn't create this information, and they're not going to be a target of the NSA. They're not going to have anything to want.
All of you entrepreneurs out there, you heard it. Get started. John Lucich, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you.